Welcome to Human Machine Relations. This is the podcast that explores how people and technology are shaping the future of work, creativity, and communication. Today's episode is the last episode in the first season. I can't believe it's flown by so quickly, but here we are. I've just finished my MBA dissertation, and in addition to my independent consulting work and producing and hosting this podcast, I absolutely need a short but well-deserved break. But don't worry, Human Machine Relations will be back in October with a brand new season and a fresh lineup of super duper guests who will be giving us their expert insights, and hopefully we'll have a few laughs as well along the way. Before I say goodbye, though, I've received a few comments and questions from our listeners, and I want to give them a shout out and try and answer these questions. So here we go. The first question is from Angela Solomon. She's a chartered PR practitioner who's based in the Netherlands, and she wrote, I would love to hear you tackle the big question that nobody is willing to answer yet. What does communications and PR actually look like in 10 years' time? I know there's no answer to that yet, but I'd love to hear you start the conversation about envisioning what a day in the life might look like. Based on all you've discussed in this series and all your own expertise, what can we anticipate at this point? Angela, that is a great question. And as you say, it's one that none of us really have the answer to in any concrete form. I think as well, I could sort of answer it, but it might take me a whole day to answer. So I'll try and give you a condensed version, but no promises. So first of all, I think from what I'm seeing, the most important aspect to that question is how the comms function will end up evolving. And I think it will most likely undergo some kind of significant structural change. This poses a real challenge for the less forward-thinking folks in our industry who maybe just want to get on with the job and do what they've always done. Probably a lot of people feel like, I'm too old for this. I'm close to retiring. I don't want to have to learn all of this new stuff. It's tough. It's tough to get to grips with all of this, but there's a real danger in that approach because while there's still a place for traditional PR skills and experience, we're already seeing PR becoming a so-called two-tier industry. And I see that split occurring not so much at the moment in-house, PR agencies and consultancies, and the bigger PR firms who have much more money to invest in developing bespoke AI tools and workflows for the sake of greater efficiencies. So in a larger agency, I think there are going to be far fewer juniors as well, which carries its own problems. And there will be account directors or account managers looking after teams of AI agents that do a lot of the entry-level work mixed in with advanced data analysis work. The real issue here is how do you manage the ethics of all of that, plus the mental load of fast-changing workflows. I think the pressure will get more intense, especially as more oversight is needed and responsibilities expand. We'll be expected to do much more with fewer resources, as we're seeing that pattern already. As for in-house comms people, where we end up in 10 years largely depends on how we approach the AI conversation today. It's all about having the foresight to make yourself integral to the AI implementation and governance process within an organization now. Otherwise, you're just going to risk making the comms function an execution kind of role where you're just told what to communicate after the decisions have already been made at the top. So to try and answer Angela's question, I think a day in the life 10 years from now will probably shift, as much as I personally very much dislike this, away from content creation to guiding intelligent systems and curating algorithmic reputation. So you might, for instance, spend your morning reviewing predictive sentiments about certain keywords to prevent a crisis before it actually happens. AI agents might take approved messaging and use it to personalize communications to target audiences for different channels at different stages in the buyer's journey. The traditional press, as well as we know it today, might not even be there any longer. Maybe it's all controlled by LLMs in the future. So AI itself will very soon become a huge reputational stakeholder that we're going to need to manage. And you'll probably spend more time governing AI outputs, steering ethical frameworks, managing reputational issues, and cultivating human trust for key stakeholder groups. I think it's a bit depressing. But on that note, I think this actually segues quite nicely into the next question, which is an email I received from Dennis Dalgaard. He is a PR advisor based in Denmark, and he wrote, I've been following your human-machine relations series, and I think there is a conversation worth having that would add a new dimension to what you've been exploring. Much of the conversation in general about AI adaptation in comms are often from an inside-out perspective. That is, how organizations adopt AI responsibly, protect their people, and govern the process without losing trust. It is an important conversation, but I would like to bring the outside-in perspective. For instance, how AI is already forming an opinion about your brand, whether one is managing it or not, and whether you like it or not. Thank you, Dennis. This is absolutely true. And it is something my guest Elif Güvençer touched on when she spoke to us about the 2 clocks framework in episode 7. If you haven't watched it, please give it a look. She said that while many people still see AI as a technology project, it is becoming a reputational project. She rightly says that AI is increasingly becoming an intermediary between companies and their stakeholders. And as PR practitioners, we need to be aware of that and act accordingly. This is something that we're going to be looking at in more detail in season 2. So anyone who is wondering where one should even start with this, make sure that you follow the podcast so you don't miss out. And then on to the final one, an anonymous listener from the UK has asked, I just heard about Movchan, a UK PR agency that made up 15 fake staff to pitch journalists. Fake names with AI headshots. Some had the AI watermark still on them. The founder says it was a workaround for a domain deliverability issue and was only meant to be temporary. Clients said they had no clue. Meanwhile, journalists are already side-eyeing PR pitches, and apparently something like half of crypto articles from big outlets in the first half of 2025 were AI written or AI assisted. It looks like we're heading towards AI pitching AI written stories with nobody on either side actually reading it. Is Movchan just a one-off cautionary tale, or is this already normal and we just don't talk about it? Well, I would like to say that this is not normal. And I certainly know that there are many well-established PR agencies who have been there for decades who would never dream of using such dishonest and underhanded tactics. The risk of reputational damage is so huge, I would like to think that most agencies would balk at it. I think when it comes to agentic AI pitching the media or acting as fake representatives of companies, it's definitely happening. We've seen stories come out in the media, but it's mostly happening on the fringes of our industry, particularly, I would say, in new agency sort of startup environments. I also think that, to be fair, for far too long, too many agencies have resisted signing up to industry body code of conducts. And that scenario has allowed PR agencies to just do pretty much anything that they want to do without regulation or oversight. The biggest risk for them would be getting caught out. Potentially, AI will be the factor that brings more regulation into our industry. The potential for misuse, disinformation, misinformation, misrepresentation is so immense now that personally, if I was responsible for hiring a PR agency, I would never take on one that is not signed up to the CIPR or PRCA code of conduct. And that means agency-wide, not just as individuals, 1 or 2 individuals working in the agency. I would want the agency that I hire to be fully, integrated and part of an industry body that is, holds them to a code of conduct. And that they have regular training and CPD in place for their employees. It's never been more important now to make sure that ethics and risk management are important to the agency that you're working with, and that they have a clear AI disclosure and governance policy before you take them on. Yeah, just align your values. There are always going to be cowboys operating on the edges, offering suspiciously amazing results, maybe for less money. But I would say if an organization hires that kind of agency, maybe they need to take a long, hard look at themselves and go back to the drawing board. Do your due diligence, guys. Don't just hire anybody. On that note, that brings us to the end of this episode and the first season. I started off small with this podcast, and because I've been doing it myself with lots of other things on the go, as I mentioned at the beginning, it has definitely been a learning curve for me, especially doing a video podcast for the first time. I've done other audio-only podcasts, but first time doing video. For me, the biggest challenge has been recording with an active construction site next door, not to mention some intermittent issues with my recording software that have threatened to turn my hair grey. It's all been good fun, though. I really enjoy having these conversations with my very knowledgeable guests. If you haven't watched all of the episodes yet, I'd encourage you take the time during my time off between seasons and do watch all of them, because we've had some really great ones. I've tried to cover a really wide range of topics with my guests so far. We've had the content expert perspective from Stuart Cording, the PR agency view with Simon Crelly, Ben Verinder, who is the author of the book AI for Public Relations, for his view on responsible AI adoption. We've had Advita Patel with her expertise on internal communications and leadership, Darren Rowett, who talked to us about the importance of building psychological safety into teams, and Elif Gaventure, who discussed her 2 clocks framework for safeguarding the future of the comms function. The last episode was the academic perspective, and I had really so much fun interviewing Nicola Hooper, who talked about the growing skills gap in PR. So a huge thank you to all of my wonderful guests who took time out of their busy schedules to have these conversations and share their knowledge. Season 2 is going to be even better, lots to look forward to. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to the conversation, or any question you'd like to ask our expert guests? Even though I'm going to be on holiday, the comments function is still going to be open, so drop your thoughts in the comments and yours could be mentioned on a future show. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to hear more conversations like this, make sure that you follow Human-Machine Relations on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'd also like to finally thank all of you for watching and listening to this podcast. I truly appreciate every follow, every share, every comment. Producing and hosting a podcast as an independent is not an easy task, and it takes up a lot of time. So I really appreciate your support. Without you, there would be no show. So a huge thank you, and remember, I'll be back again in October with season 2. Until then, thanks for listening, and remember, the future isn't just about what machines can do, it's about how we choose to work with them. Adios.